When we first saw the apartment, we couldn't believe our luck. It wasn't luxurious, but it was exactly what we needed, close to our parents, spacious, and boasting a stunning view. With a small child who took up so much of our time and energy, the help our parents promised was essential. The apartment had 3 rooms, a storage space, and a large loggia adorned with wood, overlooking a serene lake. Sure, the building wasn't new. The 9-story structure must have been 40 years old, but it was surrounded by open courtyards and shaded by tall, leafy trees. I had always admired this area as a child. My mother and I lived in a cramped apartment in an old 5-story building where everything felt tight. The courtyards, the entrances, even the shops. But here, there was space, freedom. It was just 3 bus stops from my parents' house, and back then, we used to walk it, past the old tuberculosis hospital, a school, an industrial zone, and finally through these quiet courtyards and the lake. If we were in a rush, we'd cut through the cemetery. So much had changed since then. Where there were once small grocery stores, now there were big chains like Pietroszka and Magnet. New apartment blocks had sprung up nearby. The cemetery we used to cross, it had long been abandoned. Overgrown with tall golden grass and littered with weathered, crooked crosses and fences, it always felt like a peaceful, forgotten place. My friend once told me her uncle was buried there, a baby who hadn't lived past 1.5 years. At first, we were afraid to walk through, but eventually we grew accustomed to its quiet beauty. Towering trees swayed gracefully, their leaves whispering in the wind, and the distant houses were hidden by thick grass. It felt untouched, undisturbed. But that cemetery wasn't there anymore. They leveled the land, dug up and reburied the remains, and turned the place into a park for children, complete with a swing and carousel near the road. The serenity of my childhood memories had been replaced by something else entirely. By then, I no longer dreamed of living here like I had as a child, but the apartment was affordable, and for now, it seemed like a practical place to stay until our child grew up. Besides, the previous owners had left behind quality furniture, a carved solid wood bed, a large wardrobe with a massive mirror, and a fully equipped kitchen. It was perfect for us at the time. We didn't have much money. Most of the furniture in our old rental had been bought by our parents, and what we had bought was secondhand. The same went for clothes and toys. We got almost everything from Avito. The former owners of the apartment were both doctors, with 2 children. But in the last few years, their marriage had fallen apart. The husband stayed in the apartment, but neighbors said he drank heavily and nearly burned down the building a couple of times. He was also hiding from debt collectors, which explained the alarm systems in every room and the double iron doors. We learned all this later, after we had already moved in. With help from our parents, we moved in our modest belongings and began settling into our new home. They visited often, taking care of the baby who, like all toddlers, demanded constant attention. He kept getting into trouble, pinching his fingers, climbing onto high tables, or pulling things down on himself. Our parents started growing uneasy after a series of strange accidents involving mirrors. First, a small mirror fell off the dressing table, then another from the bathroom cabinet. The worst was when the large mirror from the wardrobe crashed down, narrowly missing the baby. After that, we removed every mirror in the house. The only one left was the pocket mirror I kept in my makeup bag. That was when things started to get strange. At night, I began hearing loud noises, like doors slamming shut. I'd wake up to the sound, heart racing, and wait in the dark for another slam, dreading its arrival. My parents grew alarmed and brought a priest to bless the house. He walked from room to room with a candle, sprinkling holy water. But after his visit, things got worse. The door slams became more frequent, and the lights started flickering and shutting off on their own. Eventually, my parents brought a mullah to perform a prayer gathering. After that, things quieted down. The lights stopped flickering. The house was peaceful again. For a while, It seemed like everything had returned to normal. Then winter came. In the Urals, winter isn't a mild visitor. It crashes in like a storm. Snow piled up to the second floor, and the nights were filled with blizzards. It was during this time that the noises began again. My husband had left on a business trip, leaving me alone with our child. For a week, the slams grew louder, more violent. The doors banged with such force that I feared they'd fly off their hinges, and by evening, the lights barely worked. We spent most nights in darkness, surrounded by strange knocks and an eerie, creeping presence. One evening, I noticed a strange buzzing in my head, like the static from a TV, but the TV was off. I looked at my little boy playing on the floor, oblivious, and realized the sound was coming from inside my own mind. Exhaustion, I thought. I'd visit a doctor once my husband returned. But then came the laughter. It started softly at first, then grew louder, more manic, bubbly, and unhinged. No matter how hard I pressed my hands to my ears, the laughter continued. It was inescapable, relentless, echoing in my mind. I couldn't take it anymore. That day, as the sun began to set, the apartment turned against me. Cupboard doors flew open, slamming shut with brutal force. Drawers rolled out and slammed back in. It felt like the entire place was alive, angry. My head filled with a thick fog of confusion, a familiar insane laughter and commands I couldn't fully comprehend. The TV blared, lights flickered wildly, and I felt an overwhelming sense of disaster. Grabbing the nearest clothes, I snatched up my child and fled. The moment I stepped into the hallway, the madness stopped. I sat on the cold stairwell, wrapping my son in a bathrobe. The stillness felt unreal. I had almost convinced myself I imagined everything, but deep down, I knew it was real, too real. A neighbor, someone I trusted, found me sitting there. He asked what was wrong. Embarrassed, I gave him vague answers, but he insisted on checking the apartment. I begged him not to go, my fear rising again, but he smiled, reassured me, and entered. Moments later, I heard it all over again. The noise, the lights, the unmistakable chaos. Too afraid to follow, I ran outside, leaving my son on the playground. I circled the building, looking up at our 10th floor window. From inside, I could hear music, laughter, the hum of people talking as if a party was raging. Then the window flew open. My neighbor appeared, completely naked, wildly throwing objects out the window, pillows, blankets, a stool. His voice was frantic, laughing as he tossed a huge TV through the window. Seconds later, he leaped after it. And that was the last I saw of him.